Welcome and thank you for taking the time to watch in this video. My name's John Jenkins from Just Add Tech. Shortly I'm going to walk you through the 8 different upload methods into Receipt Bank. If you're not sure what Receipt Bank is, then you're probably in the wrong place and shouldn't be watching this video. However, if you do know what Receipt Bank is, you'll also know that you don't need to use all 8 different upload options. So if you stick with us through the next section of the videos, we'll talk to you about the pros and cons of using each option, and you will work out what is best for your business. So during this first video, what we're going to do is show you how to use the upload facility within Receipt Bank. So this is really useful when you've got PDF documents laying around that you want to process through Receipt Bank and you want to get them in there quickly and easily. So from the Add Items menu, you choose Add Items, and by default, the first page you always come to is the Upload screen. So at the moment, what I need to do is to choose an owner, because until I tell Receipt Bank who the processor of the items are, it won't actually allow me to upload files. So you can see there, at the moment I need to select an owner. If I choose a user, it then gives me the ability to upload items. This is so if you've got multiple people using Receipt Bank, particularly if you're an admin and you can see all of the other users, it makes inbox management a lot easier because you can do filters by users. So it does make a difference if you actually use the correct user when you're importing data into Receipt Bank. So we've got a couple of options in terms of how we can upload items. We've got single item files and we've got multiple item PDFs. So single item files means that basically you are going to upload items that are just a single invoice per file. So you're telling Receipt Bank that each document is one single invoice. So if you've got a PDF document that's got 6 pages to that invoice, it will still know that those 6 pages relate to one invoice. You can see just over to the right here, there's the files types that are supported by Receipt Bank. So you can submit JPEGs, PNG, GIF, BMP, TIFF, PDF, HTML, doc, so Word documents, and zip folders more importantly. So if you've got historical data that you would like to bring across and it's in a zipped folder, you can do that as well by simply dragging and dropping. So the other option is multiple item PDFs. So this works really well if you've got data that you want to bring in from historical purposes and it's previously been scanned. This will work where you've got single page invoices. So if you had 50 pages, 50 invoices, and they were 1-page items and they happen to be in one PDF, if you choose the multiple item PDF, you are telling Receipt Bank that that document needs to be split and that there are multiple items within it. Now, if you happen to have invoices within the file that were more than 1 page, Receipt Bank would treat each page as an individual invoice. However, there is a merge function within Receipt Bank. So if you found it a lot quicker and easier to get all of the data in and extract it as single page items, you could then put those multiple page items back together again using the merge facility, which we'll talk about in another video. So for now, I'm just going to show you how quick and easy it is. I'm going to go back to single item files and zip files. So if I were to click here to select files, it would go to my computer and I'd be able to upload documents that are actually sat on my machine. But I've got a folder set up already with some documents in, as you can see here. So I would quite simply just highlight those documents, drag them across, and you can see Receipt Bank is now going to upload all of these items. As it does each one, you get a green tick to let you know that it's been successfully uploaded, and it tells you that those items are now in processing in your inbox. So shortly you'll be able to see those items in your inbox. The really nice thing with this function is if you try to upload an invoice from the same supplier with the same invoice number in the file name as you've done previously, it won't actually let you upload it. So if you've got more than one person using Receipt Bank and, for example, you had 2 people in your purchase ledger department and one uploaded an item and then another one tried to do it again, it would actually warn that person that that item is already in there. So it tries to stop you from duplicating invoices within your accounting system. So that is the upload function within Receipt Bank. It's really as simple as that. So in this video, we're going to kind of walk you through the email in option within Receipt Bank. This is probably the most widely used option to get data into Receipt Bank, primarily because it's the easiest way to do this, because you don't actually have to do any work yourself. So as you can see in the middle of the screen here, I've actually got a receiptbank.me email address. Now, each user that's set up within Receipt Bank will get their own user name specific email address. In this instance, I've chosen justaddtech@receiptbank.me. Now, obviously, this has to be unique. So if somebody else had already had justaddtech, I wouldn't be able to use that option. What you want to do, of course, is try and choose an email address that is easy for you to remember. Okay, because you want to be able to provide this to people, perhaps suppliers. If you have an account where the only documentation they ever send you, for example, is a receipt or an invoice, then this is actually a really good way to not have to touch any paperwork, because if you provided them with your Receipt Bank email address, each time that supplier emails you a credit note, an invoice, a statement, for example, it would go straight into your inbox within Receipt Bank. So if you can imagine you've then got that supplier set up to auto-publish, all of a sudden you've got a seamless, hands-free purchase ledger section to your business, because you're not touching anything, you're not coding anything, and it's ending up in your accounting software. Okay, so the way to use this primarily is nearly all suppliers will email you invoices. So I'm just going to show you an example here. I've got an invoice that came into me from Microsoft. So I've got an invoice attached here. All I would need to do to get this invoice into my Receipt Bank inbox would be to simply hit forward and enter my Receipt Bank email address and then hit send. Okay, and what that's now done is it's forwarded that email with the attachment into Receipt Bank. Receipt Bank will read the item attached to it and will extract the data, and that will end up in my inbox ready for processing. As I said, if I had auto-publish set up on Microsoft's account within Xero, within Receipt Bank, I would also be able to then get that data pushed straight through into my accounting product. It really is that simple. So when you set up your Receipt Bank, it will give you a default receiptbank.me email address. You have the ability within your account settings to change that to something that's unique and easy for you to remember. You can either forward emails into that email address, or if you're using an account with suppliers where you only get documentation for invoices and credit notes, then it would actually be sensible to give them that email address so that they can send the document straight into Receipt Bank for you, and then you're not having to touch the data at all. So we're now on to the add items option using the Receipt Bank app. So what we want to be able to do here is to show you how you can use the phone app with Receipt Bank to put items in. This works really well with receipts rather than, you can use it for invoices as well, but of course it works better for receipts when you're out and about. So you've had that meeting, you've got that coffee receipt in your hand. It will normally go in the wallet or purse and disappear, and you'll never get reimbursed for that coffee that you've had, which of course is tax-free money in your own back pocket. So it certainly makes sense to make sure that you are capturing all of these items, because it's your money at the end of the day, and Receipt Bank have made it so easy for you to be able to do that now. So I'm just going to go across into the app so that you can see what you need to do and actually how you need to process an item. So you can see on the screen that is basically my inbox as it sits within Receipt Bank at the moment. I've been adding some items in from the other add items options, and those are now starting to filter through into my inbox. So I'm going to capture an image now of a receipt or a couple of receipts for you, so that you can see how relatively straightforward this is for you to be able to capture your receipts when you're on the run. So here we go. You just click on the camera icon and you can see the receipts in front of you. So there we go. And then it is as simple as hitting the paper icon here and that is that receipt ready to go. Now, obviously, what you need to bear in mind is that ultimately Receipt Bank uses OCR for extracting data from receipts, so you need to make sure that the quality of the image is legible enough that you can read it. Otherwise, there's no way that the computer is going to be able to read it. So if this was a poor quality one, we could choose retake and then take another shot if we wanted to. But I'm happy with the quality of that one, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit submit. That's it. So now you can see I've got another item that's popped into my inbox. It's currently blank at the moment because the invoice is being processed, or the receipt, sorry, is being processed. So it's extracting that data as we're speaking, and soon that would also appear in my inbox. So I'm just going to take another one for you. Okay, so here's our receipt for the post office. I'm just going to show you another couple of options at the bottom here. So you've got multi. So this is if you've got a particularly long receipt, you spent a lot of money at IKEA and you can't possibly fit it all into one screenshot. So you can choose the multi option, and what it will enable you to do is to actually take 2 or 3 shots of the receipt if it's that long, and then it basically merges them all together into one document. So I'm just going to go back across over to single here. You can see the beautiful picture. That's Kingston Lacy and Wimborne there. For anybody who's never been there, it's a lovely place to go. And again, so we can see that it's a decent enough quality picture. So I'm quite happy to submit that one. And there you go, that's going across, and that's in processing with Receipt Bank as well as we're currently speaking. It really is that simple to send your items across. I said, it's great if you've got a batch of receipts and you want to sit down and just burn through them in one go. It's so quick and easy to do that. Obviously, the beauty of Receipt Bank is that it is extracting all of that data for you without you having to do a single keystroke. As we've mentioned, or will mention in some of the other sections, if you've got auto-publish set up on your suppliers, then it can actually apply rules to it and post it straight into your accounting software as well. So it really is hands-free accounting as far as it's humanly possible. So that's it. That is using the app. Obviously, the apps are available to download from the Play Store for Google for Android, and Apple's iPhone store. The app is not available on Microsoft, so if you do have a Microsoft Windows phone, obviously upgrade your phone, because this is something that you don't want to miss out on. Okay, so we're now going to move on to how you can submit items to Receipt Bank by post. So this option is great for those people who don't want to upload files or email. Perfect for people who are out on the road quite a bit and would prefer to just put their receipt and invoices into an envelope and send it off. Now, this is an extra chargeable fee on top of your Receipt Bank subscription. The advantage, of course, being that once the items have been sent off, Receipt Bank will actually scan those for you, and they end up in your inbox ready for processing. Those items will not be sent back to you. Okay, so please only send stuff off that you're happy for somebody to destroy, because they are securely shredded afterwards. And the main item here is, if you are entering anything into Receipt Bank that ultimately you don't want someone else to see, please do not put it in a Receipt Bank bag. We have seen instances where some people like to put bank statements into Receipt Bank. Well, of course, if you're using the add items by post, this is definitely not the place that you want to be sending your bank statements to, because somebody at the scanning depot will be able to see those. So we don't see many people using the post option. The main reason being the time delay. One of the biggest time savers and benefits of using Receipt Bank coupled with something like Xero is having real-time information. Of course, what we find is if you're storing your receipts and invoices up until the end of the month, that means they're only going to get processed once a month, and all of your data is not as up to date as it could be. So think carefully about whether or not this is something that you wish to do. So if you wanted to turn it on, it's quite simple. As we've done previously, we just go to add items in Receipt Bank, and then we choose post. And then, as I've detailed, you can see here that by turning it on, it will add an extra £3 charge to your monthly subscription. Now, that's obviously quite a small fee compared to the time that it takes you to sit down and process all of your items. But again, it's all about speed and how accurate and up to date you want your information. So if you wanted to turn this on, you simply have to toggle the option to on, and then you can see you've got an option to use receipt bags or to self-post. So the difference here is if you choose use receipt bags, Receipt Bank will send you out a logoed Receipt Bank envelope for you to use, which you pop your receipts into and then send that off. Okay. Now, these get sent out once a month. So if you, in the meantime, have items that you want to send in on a regular basis, then we would actually suggest that you use the self-post. See the difference here? It now brings up a free post address with all of the details of where that actual receipt bag envelope would go. So as long as you make sure that you've got the free post and the customer reference number on your post envelope, then it will know where to go and it will make sure that it gets processed and put into your account. So you can either use this option all of the time and just use your own envelopes, or you can choose the use receipt bags option and that will send out the branded Receipt Bank envelopes. Ultimately, it's up to you, but the self-post one is definitely quicker because you don't have to wait for envelopes to be sent out to you. During this video, we're going to show you how to use the PayPal option to submit items into Receipt Bank. This is actually a bit of a weird one. It sounds like a fantastic feature to be able to integrate PayPal with Receipt Bank. If you buy a lot of stuff and when you're checking out you pay by PayPal, then it gives you the ability to bring that data across into Receipt Bank. Sounds awesome, saves a lot of time. In our experience, it doesn't work as well as that, primarily down to the fact that if somebody invoices or you get an email correspondence from PayPal and you put that into Receipt Bank, the likelihood is that you may also receive an invoice directly from the supplier. People then upload the invoice from the supplier as well. Because there's a difference in the data between the supplier invoice and the PayPal information, Receipt Bank might not necessarily pick up as being a duplicate, so then you end up with multiple items in your inbox. What we tend to find is that once you've set PayPal up, because it just works in the background, you almost forget that you've turned it on. So you fundamentally just forget about it, but then you just end up with multiple transactions, which is a bit of a pain in the backside because then you just end up deleting those items that are in your inbox because you don't need multiple copies of the same thing. So we would say if you're going to use this, then use it sparingly, and also just remember that you've set it up. It's really straightforward to get going. If you come across into add items and you come to your PayPal tab, you will see that you've got the ability here to simply click a button and enable PayPal. You can choose how far back you want to load historical documents. So if you've got a way to go back, you can actually go and get historical data. You can see it jumps from 3 months to 1 year. If you only needed 6 months, for example, you might be better bringing in a year's worth of data and then simply archiving or deleting the older 6 months that you don't need. But at least then you've got all of the information within the system to work from. So all you would do is choose Enable PayPal, put in your PayPal login credentials, which is where you purchase your items from suppliers, as you can see here. And then once that's connected, it really is as simple as that. Each time you make a purchase through PayPal, it will go away and it will bring the data straight back into your inbox within Receipt Bank, ready for you to process. And it's as straightforward as that. Like I said, the one thing that we tend to find is that people just forget that it's set up because it's so easy to do. It works in the background and then it actually causes a bit of a headache when managing your inbox. So just be very, very mindful of that. So we're on the home stretch now, just a couple more options to choose in terms of how to add items into Receipt Bank. So during this section, we're going to talk about mileage. Exactly the same process as previously. Once we're into Receipt Bank, it is add items and then head across to the mileage section. Now, this is not going to be relevant to everybody. So if this is not for you, then please feel forward to skip on. It's also particularly only applicable to the UK market, as the app that integrates into Receipt Bank for mileage is called TripCatcher. Now, for those who are using a system such as Xero that doesn't currently offer a mileage tracking app, you do have the ability to use something such as TripCatcher. which will log your business miles for you, and it integrates into Receipt Bank. This gives you the ability to add those miles onto an expense claim if you are using Receipt Bank for employee expenses or for yourself, of course. So as you can see from the screen, it's pretty simplistic because the integration actually happens from within your TripCatcher account. Okay, so if you are interested in recording miles and you want to bin the Excel spreadsheet that you've been using, or the back of the fag packet that you've been writing things on for months and then never get a chance to actually reimburse yourself for, if you head over to the TripCatcher website, what you'll be able to see is that you've got options here in terms of how the TripCatcher and Receipt Bank integration works. But more importantly, the app itself, you claim your mileage expenses, you can enter recurring trips, you can track your mileage by GPS or using the Google Maps, and more importantly, you can keep your VAT bill down, because if you enter your car details into the system, what it will do is it will actually calculate how much VAT you can claim back on the mileage that you've been driving for business. So if you haven't previously reduced your VAT bill and claimed back the VAT on your mileage, which you are perfectly entitled to do, the app will actually help you calculate those options. And of course, there is a phone app so that you can track your miles as you're going through the month, rather than trying to remember at the end of the month where it is you've been and then end up losing all of that valuable money because you can't remember. Pricing starts at just £1.49. So if you compare that to how much money you're possibly losing on the expenses that you're not claiming mileage for, then it's probably a very worthwhile investment. As I said, in terms of the Receipt Bank integration, there's not an awful lot to tell you here, because you actually integrate the mileage section from within TripCatcher itself. So we're going to talk about the Dropbox integration with Receipt Bank now, in terms of how you can add items to Receipt Bank directly from within Dropbox. So we start with the add items section again, and then this time we're going to come over to Dropbox. Now this is a one-off option. You only need to enable this the first time that you go into to be using it. Once it's set up, that's it. You can then just work within Dropbox. So you can see from the screen here what it's actually going to do is, all I need to do, this is obviously you need a Dropbox account for this. If you don't have Dropbox and you're not using Dropbox, this option is of no use to you whatsoever. But if you are using Dropbox, then this is an ideal way that if you are already running a process of saving PDF or other file type invoices down into your Dropbox folder and you wish to keep them there, then you can use this option. What would be really good is if anyone from Receipt Bank is listening to this video, if you could add something like Google Drive to this as well, that would be absolutely ideal. So if you are a Dropbox user and you wish to still keep copies of all of your lovely invoices and receipts in your own file structure somewhere within Dropbox, then all you need to do is simply enable Dropbox, and this series of folders over here that we can see is going to add those into your Dropbox account. So if you are now to go over to Dropbox, probably allow it a couple of minutes to sync, and you go to apps, and then there'll be a folder called Receipt Bank, and then within there you'll have some folders called Receipts and Invoices for which you can add items to. What Receipt Bank then does is it sweeps those folders, and whenever it finds any new items, it will extract them and bring those into Receipt Bank for processing, and they will then end up in your inbox. So if you don't want to spend your life in Receipt Bank, but you still want to contain the same workflow that you're used to, which is you get a supplier email, it's got an attachment to it, you save it down into Dropbox, you can still do exactly that. But what you've got to remember is to save it into the relevant folder structure so that Receipt Bank can sweep it and collect it for you. Okay, I'm just going to show you an example now of what this looks like. So within the folder structure here, we can see that we've got invoices, processed files, receipts, and unsupported files. So what will happen is if you put your items into the invoices folder or the receipts folder, those are the ones that Receipt Bank will sweep for you and bring the documentation across into Receipt Bank for processing. Once these items are being processed, they'll be moved into the processed files. So this is where you'll be able to store all of your items and still have access to them locally on your machine should you choose to do that. Any files that can't be submitted to Receipt Bank because they're an unsupported file format, i.e. they're not on the list that you can find in the upload section, then those will get popped into the unsupported files. So if you are missing something from Receipt Bank and you can't understand where it's gone, have a look in the unsupported file section first, because you may well find it in there. Hey there. So one of the things I'm going to quickly show you in this video is the new Receipt Bank fetch option. This is where you can automatically send Receipt Bank to go and collect those invoices where the suppliers no longer send them out. Think BT, O2, the large corporates that no longer send out PDF documents attached to emails, so that you painstakingly every month have to go and log in, download the document, and then upload it into Receipt Bank. So the guys over at Receipt Bank have created this excellent new feature called Fetch, which will enable you to enter your login credentials into Receipt Bank. And from there, each time there's a new document added to your account, it will go and collect it and bring it back into your Receipt Bank account. So if you think along the lines of having auto publish set up on a supplier, that means that each month you could end up with your invoice being directly deposited straight into Xero via Receipt Bank and the Fetch option. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to use this. So when you're in Receipt Bank now and you're on the Add Items tab, what you'll be able to see is there's now an additional option up here called Fetch. If you simply click on that, okay, you can see I've already got some connected. What you'll be able to do from here, if you wish to add a new one, is to go to Browse and then do a search. So if you simply start typing in the name of the supplier, hopefully you'll sign on the list. You can see there are over 2,000 possible connections, and you can contact Receipt Bank if there is anything missing that you would like to have on there. And then what you're able to do from the account is to find the supplier that you're interested in, click Add, enter your login credentials, and simply select Connect. You see on some of the suppliers you may find that there are additional options on here also that you can use. Once this is set up and configured, each time a new invoice is deposited with that supplier, Receipt Bank will go and collect it from the supplier using Fetch, bring it back into Receipt Bank, and as I said earlier, if you're using auto publish on that supplier, it will then automatically send that invoice across into Xero. So it's now effectively created completely entryless bookkeeping for you. It can't be much simpler than that, so please go ahead, give it a try and see how you get on. I'm sure you'll like it. As I said, if there's anything missing, there are some suppliers out there that you find that you would like to see on the list, contact Receipt Bank, let them know, and I'm sure they'll try and add it. Okay, thank you.